Ever look around you and see people and wonder how they manage to appear so highly resourceful? Do you listen to that voice inside your head sometimes saying, you just can't do this, it's not for me? Do you instinctively wish that you were able to do more or had a greater belief in yourself? If any of those resonate with you, NLP is going to be of interest. NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Hugely jargonised, those three words, so let's make sense of it. In essence, it's how we interpret the external world. It's how we make sense of things that happen around us and give it a frame of reference that's relevant for us. We take on board information through our 5 key senses: what we see, what we hear, what we feel, physical touch, what we smell and what we taste. And it comes in and our conscious and unconscious mind then works really hard to make sense of it. And at an unconscious level, what happens is we will influence the information we take on board dependent on our values, our memories, our beliefs and our decisions. And that huge volume of information that comes in suddenly gets all reduced in size and we give it meaning. And that meaning is specific for us. So no two people have the same memories, the same decisions, the same beliefs. So therefore we'll all make sense of the external world in a different way. Hence why we all then show up slightly differently. So once we've now got that point of reference, what happens is that we give it meaning. And once we give it meaning, it then has almost like a life to itself. We give it meaning that has an emotional response that impacts our physiology and then impacts how we choose to show up, what we're able to do, how we feel through the course of that day. So imagine, if you will, that you have the ability to change that. There's a very clear equation that for me encapsulates NLP, and it is behaviour plus situation equals outcome. Now, if you don't like the outcome, the end result, but you can't change the context, the situation, there is only one area of flexibility in this equation, and that's within our behaviour. And it might seem really straightforward to say, well, if you behave differently, you'll get a different outcome. But in essence, we need to change the processes that take place behind that behaviour in order to get a different outcome. So let's give you an example now, and I'd like you to think about some examples for yourself. So if you imagine where we are right now, hopefully at the tail end of a pandemic. Now, by virtue of that situation occurred, and it meant that, for me personally, elements of my work shifted and changed quite dramatically and actually reduced quite dramatically. But I had a choice within this. I could either sit in that moment and go, well, this sucks, this isn't very good, or I can think, what can I do differently? How can I be more creative? How can I think differently so that I'm able to influence that outcome? Now, you're not necessarily going to get a better outcome, but what you get is a different outcome. And that different outcome then opens up other avenues of choice for you. So therefore, your thinking around a previous situation becomes more extensive. Within the world of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, we're going to be looking at exactly how we can influence the information we take on board, how we can change the way we choose to process it in order to gain that different outcome and to become more resourceful. If you think about how a belief might influence you, so imagine, if you will, you wake up in the morning, you're just kind of going, I feel so under-resourced, I feel overwhelmed by what's going on around me. Both of those emotions, both of those thought processes will influence how you physically feel. And you'll feel heavier, you might feel slower. If you're anything like me, if you're feeling like that, you think, I don't want to go for a run this morning. I'm just going to stay here and grab a cup of coffee and potentially stay in bed for another 5 minutes. And then as you play that through the course of the day, what happens is you start to say to yourself, I should have got up. I wish I'd gone for a run. Why didn't I? And you start to feed a negative belief around how you're behaving, how you're showing up. When we shift and change that dialogue that we have internally, we will shift and change the things that we then go ahead to do. As someone who does triathlons, I used to struggle massively with running, which is a bit of an issue because it's 33% of the overall activity. And I would say to myself, I can't run, I can't run. And as I was saying that to myself, I would be playing it out in my ability to swim, in my ability to cycle. All the time this narrative is playing out for me. So when I got to the stage of putting my trainers on, I was able to congratulate myself at my inability to run. But in essence, I had created that situation. When I started to change how I chose to think about it and feel about it, I then got a different outcome. But not only did I demonstrate that yes, I can run, but my swimming improved, my cycling improved, and all the time I became really aware of how the dialogue that I was playing out was changing. And as we start to think in a more positive, expansive way, what happens is our physicality changes, it opens up. We become stronger, we become taller, which basically means our ability to show up in the world shifts and changes. Now here's the thing, Neuro-Linguistic programming isn't the panacea of everything. We're not suddenly going to don a Superman cape and Wonder Woman pants and fly out the door. You might, who knows. But what you have is the ability to recognise that when you're in a place that is stuck, when you're in a place that isn't serving you, behaviour plus situation equals outcome, you have an opportunity to shift and change it. And we can do that by realigning the way that we're thinking about things, which will give us a different outcome. So I want you to think for a moment, just take a couple of moments and think about a recent situation you've had where you found yourself in that place of going, that really wasn't what I wanted to happen. And now think about if you had changed the way you thought about it when you were in that situation, would you have gained a different outcome? Would you have felt different about it? Whilst we have those thoughts that hold us back, our ability to be resilient and resourceful is diminished quite dramatically. But this is only a state of mind. And when I say only, I'm not undermining it, far from it, but it's about recognising it is only a state of mind. It is a way we are now choosing to think and feel. And by virtue of that we are choosing to think and feel that way, we can choose to think and feel a different way that will therefore give us the end result that we're looking for. So imagine, if you will, looking around you and seeing these people and recognising that no longer are you just looking at highly resourceful people, but you're one of them. Tuning into that inner dialogue, the one that used to say, I don't think so, it's not for me, I don't think I can do it. And listening now to the words that you're saying to yourself, I can, I will, I am. And intuitively knowing that you have the ability internally to show up in the world in the way that you want to. And you have the ability to be resourceful and resilient as you show up in the world.